and I are very similar in that we both believe that our mission on this earth is to serve others and to make our world a better place. And I think that's one reason why we get along so well, is we believe that kids have the opportunity and that youth have the ability to make our world a better place, and that the people we work with are doing the best job they can. And my role, my being, is helping and being with others and working with others. And I love it. I get all enthusiastic and jazzed around that word.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Capture It. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Listen, life is a journey full of moments that provide us with opportunity to capture what it is that helps us grow into the people we truly want to be. Let's talk about these ideal characteristics that inspire and motivate us all, and in time, work to capture it ourselves. Here we are, listeners. It's episode 3. Welcome back. Today we welcome award-winning teacher and principal David Nieslanik to the show. David taught social studies for many years. He was also an activities director, much like myself, and is now a high school principal. And if you ask me, a pretty darn good one. Nieslanik resides in Beaverton, Oregon with his wife, Lisa, and has 2 amazing daughters, Paige and Mihaela, who are both out tackling the world and kicking butt. David is here to talk with us all about the great tool of perspective. We want to take a minute to thank our episode sponsor, Jake Lucy, with Coldwell Banker Mountain West Real Estate, helping people buy and sell homes in the Willamette Valley since 2012. When you buy or sell your home with Jake, you will receive a lifetime handyman repair service, which can save you thousands of dollars on repair or replacement of any existing HVAC system or fixing minor repairs around the home. Labor is free. You only pay for the parts. Thinking of buying or selling your home in the Willamette Valley? Call 503-999-6578 and let him show you why he has been voted as one of the Mid-Valley's best residential agents 6 years in the running. Mention this ad that you heard on Capture It, the podcast, and he will hook you up with an I Love Lucy t-shirt. I got one myself, wear it around the house. It's quite comfy. Give Jake a call. All right, listeners, we welcome David Nieslanik to the show today. David, thank you for being on our show.
Oh, no problem, Joe. I'm excited to
Hope you're having a good day.
This is great.
So, do you know at all about the show, Capture It? Did you get a
do.
chance to listen to the launch, the first episode?
I did. Episode 1 was intriguing. I learned a lot about you, and it was nice hearing Emily and the questions and kind of where we're going with the vision and who we are as people.
Oh, and I think it's a great reminder of what Capture It's all about. And I wanted the first episode to be a little bit of a platform to where the listener could get to know me as a host.
Right.
And, because to be honest with you, we're doing this whole podcast thing completely backwards. Mm-hmm. Most people have this platform already,
right.
And then they have... then they start a podcast, and wherever that platform is, like if Barack Obama started a podcast tomorrow, he'd have millions of listeners, right? We're doing this a little bit backward. Right. I have a centralized, localized platform.
So maybe what we do, like a year from now, we reverse the roles, and myself or someone who you've interviewed comes on and kind of ask you some questions about a theme.
Get a check-in.
Get a check-in about where you're at in your learning and what you're sharing and
I've
where
learned
you're
a
going.
lot. I've learned a lot, but what I am finding is this is going to be definitely a little bit of a passion project. I'm excited to turn the record button on,
right.
And just share some thoughts, because it's not about me. It's about what we can deliver to our listeners as something that might be able to help them in their journeys a little bit that they can take away today and go work on it. So I wanted to give them the opportunity to know you, and get to know you as my guest. You are a principal of the
Yeah,
school that
I
I
am.
work at, and I'm so excited
It's an
that
honor to work alongside you, Joe.
it is. The honor is all mine, and I get excited to tell people that I work for you as a principal. I love your vision. I love your guidance, and definitely appreciate having you as a mentor
Well, thank
in
you.
my life.
Thank you.
So we're going to play a game first, though.
I like
And
games.
this game is a well-known game. We're going to be talking about perspective here today. So I thought a good game for perspective would be, would you rather?
Ah, this is great.
So I'm going to ask you questions on would you rather, and then you just simply answer with your perspective, with your lens,
Okay.
right?
Can I explain why if I
You can.
if I have to?
You can, and
okay.
I might disagree with you, but I'll bring it in because again, that's
Different
the importance
perspectives.
of perspective. Okay, so question number 1: would you rather eat a blended Big Mac or perform the gallon milk challenge, knowing that you will throw up? I don't know if you know this, but it's impossible to drink a gallon of milk within an hour because the human stomach can't hold that much lactate at a time.
Well, actually, that makes me feel good because I can never drink a gallon of milk. I don't know if I could drink a quart of milk.
Okay, so would
So
you rather?
for me, I'd rather eat a blended Big Mac. I
Really?
don't eat Big Macs, but when I think of milk, I think of growing up on a farm and we had milk cows. And so getting up in the morning and having to milk those cows in the middle of winter just brings back horrible memories.
So
And,
it has nothing to do with
it
the
has
fact that you
nothing
would
to
throw
do-
up.
I don't mind throwing up milk, but I wouldn't even drink the milk to throw up. The Big Mac would be a much easier choice. It may stay in my stomach a while, but ugh.
So I have to admit that I have done the gallon milk challenge.
Did you throw up?
I did, definitely. Everyone that we participated, we all eventually did throw up. Back in the college days, right?
Right,
Where you got all these great ideas.
That's good.
So I think I would also choose right now the
Mac?
blended Big Mac.
Really?
Because I think there would be the chance, even though I think it would probably be pretty disgusting,
Right.
the chance that you wouldn't throw up is still there.
I wonder what color it would be. When you actually blended it, what would the final color of that blended Big Mac be? Would it be red?
It would be light brown. It's got to be light brown.
Ugh.
You know it would.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Would you rather randomly time travel plus or minus 20 years every time you farted, or teleport to a different place on Earth, on land, not water, every time you sneezed?
Wow.
That's
I
a
wonder
tough
if
one.
you put the on land, not water part, because I'm Polish, and my theory is Polish people don't swim well; we float well. But I would pick teleport to a different place on Earth every time I sneeze
Why?
because I love travel.
You do?
I love going places. I like seeing something new, and so I think that would be interesting. And that might be a shock to you because you probably thought I would say time travel because I like history, and I was a history teacher once.
You would.
in my-
yeah.
in my
Well, and
past.
I think if you just think of like the pure enjoyment of this, I think time travel is more difficult. There's more adjustments
is,
you have to
right.
make.
Right,
You'll
right,
have to adjust to the time period, figure out what's going on,
Yeah.
how to do and navigate that versus where am I and how do I?
I didn't think of that from that lens, but I still wouldn't do time travel. I would sneeze and travel, sneeze and travel, sneeze and move.
I like
sneeze
it.
And move. Yeah.
All right, David. Would you rather only be able to use a fork, no spoon, or only be able to use a spoon, no fork for the rest of your life?
This is a tougher question for me because I don't know. I'm going to say I'd rather use a fork because I think I could maneuver that fork to use it in multiple ways. I could use it as a knife. I could use it to cut. I could use it to pick up. I could use it to hold, something. Maybe if I'm eating a soup, I have to be careful unless I make chunky soup.
Well, that's a great point. This question for me comes down to, do you like soups or not?
Yeah, but you could pick up the bowl and drink it.
Oh, that's a great point. Valid point.
So
I think
have
you
to
could
be
cut stuff with a
fork.
spoon as well.
Right. It's going back to Lisa, my wife, you mentioned earlier. She always eats ice cream with a fork, which I find weird. So every time she does that, it kind of just goes, ugh.
Here you go. You're doing it
why?
again.
But exactly. but I would definitely use a fork.
Okay. I like it. All right. This one's tough. And when I was going through some of these questions, I thought of you in this one because I know that these things are both near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a principal, you probably are going to be doing both these things. Okay. Lose the ability to read or the ability to speak.
I do like to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like my
That's
words.
kind of why I invited you on the show,
Wow.
David.
Yeah, you can fill some time easily with my stories. Oh, Joe, I think I would rather lose the ability to speak. I think reading keeps your mind active, keeps you young. You always have the opportunity to learn something new, to engage in different ways, to look at perspective differently. And I think speaking can be done non-verbally and through other modes. With technology today, I think communication can happen in multiple ways. And I think that body language is half of speaking anyway.
Yeah.
And so, but reading to me is such an important part of my life. It's what do.
I would have gone that route with you as well. I mean, there are so many good ways to communicate, and sometimes listening
Yeah,
is the best thing you can do
definitely.
to help other people. So I would have definitely gone that route.
You know, the
with
older I get, Joe, the more I realize that just listening is half of speaking.
Yeah,
just
well, and
sitting back and observing and taking information in without even giving an opinion or a viewpoint or a response.
Yeah, well, and I was on Twitter earlier today, and Brian Mindler, one of his notes to dealing with difficult kids in education was, you know, the most important word is the second to the last word. Not having to have the last word.
He's exactly right.
So important. So I know you. I've worked with you for 4 years now. Couldn't be happier to have you as a principal to help guide the ship of the school. I do want to give the listeners a chance to get to know you a little bit. So, David Nislanik, give us a little bit of your journey. You know, where you were born, growing up, what brought you to education, kind of how did you become the you that you are?
That's good. My story begins in Colorado, western Colorado, small town. Grew up in Glenwood Springs, halfway between Aspen and Vail, if that gives you a point of reference, to a very large Polish family. I have 4 siblings. I have 67 first cousins. My father is one of 12 children, so he has 11 siblings. And so my younger years are founded in family.
Big family.
Big family.
Yeah.
And family that gathers together.
Yeah.
And family still to this day
Well,
gathers
that's
together.
great. I think I was sitting with my grandparents the other day, and they did the math. Well, I think the number we came up 72 grand and great grandchildren.
Isn't that amazing?
That's huge. Yeah,
Right.
it's family, and so I love that.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
family for me gets me into, high school, and then high school goes to college, and I went to Colorado State University, and from there, I really wanted to see the world, so I joined the Peace Corps. And I think that my time in the Peace Corps, my experience overseas in the Kingdom of Nepal, really allowed me to learn about myself and my place in the world, questioned my faith, questioned my ability to communicate, questioned my dreams and desires, and then kind of fortified who I am. Came back and began teaching in 1991. I've been teaching since 1991.
Did anybody else in your family do Peace Corps? Did anybody you know, friends, anything like that?
No, nothing growing up at all. I was just kind of in college, an opportunity to go to Thailand in my sophomore year through the 4-H program. And when I was in Thailand, I got really, really ill. And so I was on the train from northern Thailand back to Bangkok, and I met a Peace Corps volunteer from Kansas. It was like a 12-hour ride, and this Peace Corps volunteer kind of motivated me to explore the Peace Corps. So I went back to CSU in Fort Collins and did some research and applied and landed in Nepal.
How do you pull the trigger on that?
I just did it.
There's got to be some fear. There's got to be like, oh, this is bigger than me. I don't know if I can handle that. But what gets you to say yes, go do it?
I don't know if I had fear at the time. I had this exhilaration of travel and this exhilaration of working with people. I got lucky and landed a volunteer position where I was building a 4-H program in the Kingdom of Nepal. So I was building something for their Department of Agriculture that I knew very well growing up. And so that perspective of having that foundation behind me and then creating something new was great. And then every day for me is an adventure, still to this day. I get up every day and I say, God, I'd love to go to school, and I get to go to school, and people roll their eyes. And when I was in Nepal, I would say, I get to go to this day, or I get to go do that, or I'm learning this, and just who I am.
I often say that you and I are built from the same cloth.
We are.
Just that enthusiasticness about life. that approach to every day. I know that you feed off being around people too.
I do. Love it.
I'm so
Love
like
people.
that, So what a better person to
I
have
love
on,
the kids
on one of my
Yeah,
episodes.
Yeah. The students, they're amazing.
And so how did you venture into the education world?
I came back from the Peace Corps. I had my degree in history and I had my teaching license, and I actually began in alternative education in Colorado. And I just was looking for jobs, landed a job, and I didn't know if I'd be a teacher forever, even though I kind of knew that I wanted to be around people. And then from 91 through about 2011, about 20 years there, I taught in 5 states. My wife worked for a major American corporation and traveled a lot and got moved. And I got lucky and got a job in everywhere I landed. And everywhere I went, I was in Texas, in both Dallas and Houston, and I was in Rhode Island, and I was in Iowa, and taught in Denver, as I said originally, and now in Portland. And everywhere I went, I just kind of grew as a teacher. And then as I grew as a teacher, I began to question my practice and question that pedagogy of what was going on around me, and learned more. And I kind of fell into administration. I didn't plan to become a principal. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that you have many different people that once they get to know you, they say, "Hey, come be a part of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Come help us out. Come
Right.
give us your vision."
Yeah.
I obviously invited you on the show today because I think that you come into the conversation with a incredible lens around perspective. So this whole idea, like, you are a boss. In a good one, if you ask me. And you work with a lot of different teachers, a lot of different staff members to move the ship forward for our school and for education. And so, how have you used, and what is your your vision with the importance of perspective and the use of perspective, not just in the field of education, but as a boss and somebody that works with coworkers, and many of them on a daily basis. What do you think about that?
Right. It's a really good question. It's a deep question. There are many different facets to that question. I would say the first thing that is foundational to me is that I believe every single adult that comes to school to do the best job they can that day. Some days are better than others. We don't know what the students will bring. We don't know what happens outside the school day that might impact their ability to learn or their ability to want to learn. But I know that every single person that I work with every day is coming to school to do the best they can. And I think coming into our work with that perspective allows me to be patient, also allows me to listen a little bit to where different people are in their work and their struggles and frustrations and celebrations. There's a lot of great things that happen in classroom. The other thing I think is important from my understanding and perspective and my understanding of my work is that I firmly believe that everything we do in education today has to be grounded in what our students need to be successful after they leave high school. It's not about the next day. It's not about what happens in math on a Tuesday, or what happens on the test the following Friday, or what happens on the basketball court. All that's important, but it's what we're doing to help our students be successful, and how can they navigate the world they're stepping into, because we don't know the world they're stepping into. Our seniors at Southridge High School have never grown up without a smartphone in their hands, or had that opportunity to grow up with a smartphone. I never had that opportunity, but here I am living in a world, leading a school, working in a district, helping our young students navigate into adulthood. And so I need to make sure that I'm providing opportunities. The other thing that in my current position is I was placed as the principal at Southridge High School in a time of transition. I knew coming in it was a time of transition. I knew that the previous principal had done great work in addressing the needs of the building, hiring well, but I knew that my role was different. My role was to make sure the school was able to see themselves 5 years down the path during a boundary change and the shifting of a demographic. But at the same time, not losing focus of who we are as people and making sure that it's real and human.
Well, something that you talked about for you personally in your own life was the ability to question, right? And ask yourselves why. Ask yourself, why is this happening this way? Why is my life taking this path? Why? And that ability to ask questions and to question what's going on and why it's going on. I think that you hinted that when you talked about your own personal growth.
Definitely.
Is being able to sit back and ask those questions. And I think oftentimes ego gets in the way of that.
Right.
You can't assume that you have the answers. You can't assume that you know what's best for everyone around you without questioning it, right? And I think that ego gets in the way of us asking those questions, right? One of my favorite speakers, is Rick Rigsby, excuse me. He talks about ego being the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. How powerful is that?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great quote.
And that idea that we need to step back and say, it's not about me.
Right.
It's about the people that I can impact. And I think that requires a lot of questioning. And perspective, one of the greatest tools we can have is question and ask those hard questions.
Right.
And be willing to have that conversation.
All right. I think also with questioning is the ability to reflect and also be patient with questioning. I think sometimes when we question to get an answer we want. I'm trying to be better at questioning to listen and then questioning to reflect upon where we're going. I don't know if you remember this, but before I came to Southridge, when I was a principal at a different building, that spring before in my transition, I sat down with every staff member and I asked them a couple of questions about what they wanted with the school and where they saw the school going. And I took all that information and summarized it into a one-page document that I still have in my daily planner. I carry it with me at all times. And behind my desk, I have on a little sticky board about 20 questions that I still look at every week. That is a synthesis of what the staff members told me in 2017 of what we're doing here at Southridge in 2020.
What a great thing. I mean, the title of this podcast is Capture It, right?
Yeah.
And the it stands for in time.
Right.
Going back to those questions that helped you start the journey of working to, wherever you're going to be at, making it the best that it is.
Yeah.
Going back to those questions and in time, working on these things and going back to those original thoughts you have and say, did I do it?
Right.
Am I working on it?
Correct.
Am I taking steps forward in
Right.
this?
Right. Am I moving the system forward? Am I meeting the needs of the staff? Am I meeting the needs of the students? Am I meeting the needs of the community? And as we look at our program and you kind of look back at those 20 or 25 sticky notes, I'm proud of that work. We're a long way from being great, but I'll tell you what, we're on a path.
Pretty good, yeah.
It's
We're
really
doing
good work.
pretty darn good. That I think about, my own personal life is like, what kind of husband am I being?
Right.
What kind of friend am I being? What kind of brother am I being?
Right.
That ability to ask yourself those difficult questions, not being afraid to have the difficult conversation with yourself.
Right.
And it's not weird to talk to yourself. If you're saying words
Well,
out
it might
loud
be weird
and,
how you answer
in
yourself,
the middle of the
but-
grocery store. That that might be strange, but having that conversation with
Right.
yourself. How am I doing? What am I doing?
Right. And also being present with those questions. When you're asking yourself those questions, how am I doing and what am I doing and why am I doing it and what's the impact of what I'm doing? Not only being honest, but being present. And then saying to yourself, okay, what comes next? How am I going to move forward?
Well, and if you use questions in inquiry, how you do, oftentimes difficult conversations come up.
Correct.
Do you like difficult conversation?
I used to be scared to death of difficult conversations, but now I'm not. I don't shy away from them. I tend to be very clear, very straightforward. Brene Brown has a great quote. Being clear is kind, and I believe that. I think that we can also have discipline with dignity when I'm working with students in disciplinary situations. I know that when I work with staff and supporting them in their work and the struggles they have in 21st century education, I think just being present and listening and being thoughtful and keeping their need at center versus my need at the center of the conversation is important.
Yeah, and if you're trying to solve any problem, I think understanding, root cause,
Correct.
Down to the base truth of
Yes.
what's going on.
Yes.
If you're afraid and you're not willing to have tough conversations, you won't be able to move forward in any part of life.
And you also will lose perspective. I mean, you'll go down a path where you detour around the true question or the true issue you have, and if you're not willing to go to that core, you're going to really, really delay or slow the process.
Absolutely. All right, so I always say what's great for a ninth grader is great for anybody to either learn themselves.
You're choking me up with that one. That's a good
okay.
one.
What's great for a ninth grader is good for anybody, whether it's something new to you or a reminder to you.
Right.
So here's what I cover with ninth graders. Are
Okay,
you ready?
so I'm ready. I'm thinking about a freshman boy when you say this. by the way,
Great,
just
awesome.
so you know. Okay.
Are you going back to your ninth grade year? Is
Oh,
that
Joe,
what
we
you're
don't want to
doing?
go back there, but I'll be present with where I'm at now.
So 3 ways to develop perspective, and I talked to my ninth graders about this, and this comes from Habitudes and Tim Elmore and the great work that they do with leadership work out in the educational world. But here's what I cover. Okay, take time to fully understand the full picture and in the current reality in a situation, so you can manage by fact. What do you think about that?
Wow, there's a lot there. I think that last phrase, so you can manage by fact, is important. In my world, using data in parallel to the human emotion part of it is important. You just can't look at raw data without knowing what's behind that data.
Right.
Who's composing the data? What's the lens you're looking at it from?
Well, yeah, when we talk about that with hard truth, okay?
Exactly.
You got hard truth, and then
Right.
you have, live truth, right?
Right.
It's like gravity is gravity. I throw a pin up, it's coming back
gonna come
down.
down.
But that living truth,
Correct.
We are human beings. We are more complex than that. So you gotta take that into factor.
And you also have to be present to understand that full picture, so that you're looking at that information and you're able to hopefully develop a perspective or a response or a question or a thought or a conversation point that is going to move it forward.
All right, totally. So seeing the full picture, and then being able to manage with truth, right? All right, number 2, and again, I cover this with ninth graders, and they can get it, so we can get it too. Think through both short-term and long-term needs.
I'm wondering how the ninth graders do with long-term needs.
Well, and I try to avoid the word goal.
Okay.
You start talking to
Right.
ninth graders about goals.
Yeah.
They're like, oh,
They gotta get through
their
Sunday.
their eyes roll into the back of their head, because all throughout their education they've been asked to set some goals,
Right.
and they do the steps and they go through and they get it on paper, and then are they actually doing things? No.
No.
So I try to avoid the idea of
Right.
using the word goals. So needs, way better word.
Yeah, it is.
Standards, way better word. All right,
Especially
so,
now. Standards not so much 10 years ago, but now standards are fine.
Yeah, so being a leader of people, right, working toward these causes, short-term and long-term needs. What do you think?
I think they're both equal, and I don't think you can outweigh one or the other. It saddens me that roughly 40% of teachers coming in the field in 2020 will exit the field in fewer than 5 years, because I think that our work is hard, and when we work with kids, we need to support them in making short-term goals to help their learning and long-term goals to improve their learning, and with staff, making sure that their workplace is one that's enjoyable. And in doing that thinking and that work, meeting those needs on that day-to-day basis, and then meeting those needs week by week, month by month, school year by school year. We have the luxury in education that most careers don't have, is that we have a natural break. And that natural break, whenever it happens in our individual calendars, allows us to recharge. And when we come back from that break, we tend to set goals, and we tend to talk about short-term and long-term needs. What we forget is we get tired along the path.
Oh yeah.
And if we get tired, then we can't meet the short-term goals.
I'm telling
at
you
all.
right now, I mean, a huge wave that's hitting us in all work experiences, right? It doesn't matter what field you're in. A huge wave that's going to hit us is talking about wellness and mindfulness.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And how to work that into whatever your career is, whatever your job is. That mindfulness is a wave that's coming. Mark my words.
You're right, Joe.
Okay, it's definitely.
I will give
a
you
word
this
coming.
one. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Appreciate it. I need all the help
All
I
the
can
help
get.
you can get.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to get that one.
And here's number 3, and again, cover it with ninth graders, and they get it. Ask for input from various sources. How important is that to perspective?
Critical to perspective. I think when we live in a world where we only get our information from one type of source or one source, we are limiting or actually might be eliminating perspective. And I think that's the detriment of what's going on nationally and maybe internationally, is that
Ego
we're not
is
opening.
the anesthesia that
Yes.
deadens the mind of stupidity.
Step back. We need to step back, and we need to make sure that we're listen to all kinds of things and being thoughtful and opening ourselves up to different opinion. And as a leader, and you know this as a teacher leader as well, as a leader, I need to be able to step back and say when I'm wrong, or my perspective or my comment was incorrect. Because if I don't do that, then it becomes a single voice. We don't want single voices.
All right. I want to jump to an article that I was reading earlier this week, and from Psychology Today, David W. Johnson, talking a little bit about perspective, and just some really good points. Okay, so we're going in. Capture it. The P stands for perspective, and how, in time, right, we should always be working on gaining perspective. I talk to my leadership students about our job is to continuously seek and try to gain perspective.
Right.
Because the more that we understand how this world works,
Right.
and how the people around us work and what they need, the more likely we are to be able to help them. Okay?
Correct.
So just some really good points, all right? We all have unique perspectives. No two people will see a situation or issue exactly the same.
It reminds me of a conversation I was having with my PEACE group. PEACE stands for Principals Equity Advisory Council. It's a excuse me. It's a group of students here at Southridge that come together periodically and talk about issues around equity, race, ethnicity, gender, etc. And we were talking about restrooms and about having gender-neutral restrooms in the building. And at first, the conversation was down a single path. Everyone had a single voice. They were all in agreement. We need to think about having these restrooms. How are we going to bring them into the student body? And then as the conversation got deeper and actually more intellectual and more voices got put on the table, and there's about 25 kids in the conversation, it actually turned a little bit to being a lot more reflective and thoughtful and thinking about how students who I thought would be on board were actually not on board with bringing gender-neutral restrooms because of the lack of education or other barriers. And then having all these kids sit around a table and talk about this one topic with different perspectives was just fascinating. And
Right.
we left in a much deeper place, in a much better place.
Well, and having the conversation, right?
it's huge.
Regardless of whether action will be taken or
Right,
not.
right.
Having the conversation and really getting a
Right.
feel. And like you said, you went into it thinking it was going to go one way,
And it went a different way.
and it went in a different way.
You know-
So if we use our assumptions as a truth for everyone, that's only going to be a disservice.
Right.
Perspective, a person's perspective is often experience-based. So we all come from
Correct.
different worlds, different walks of life, and our experience oftentimes is our truth. And our experiences is what is the base of our perspective. Our experiences allows us to speak to what we have seen.
Correct. And we have to be thoughtful. We have to be really thoughtful about how we engage in conversations. I'm a 54-year-old male, been in education for over 25 years, and the world around me is changing quickly. And I need to be willing to look at perspective and different people's experiences. And, I left my small town, Western Colorado family, went to college, then went to the Peace Corps. And in the Peace Corps, everything was different than what I grew up with. 100%. Well, that's not true. There was one commonality, and that was family. And the family may have been defined differently, but family was still important. But how that family functions or what they did or their perspective on family and the definitions of family might look different based upon cultural differences. But I left that experience, and still to this day, looking at everyone's experiences, let them be equal in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Anywhere you go, family's important. I mean, you want to build relationships, treat people like family.
Yes,
treat
totally.
your staff like
Yes,
family.
yes.
When you come into contact, with people, assume
Yeah.
that they might need you
Correct. And
as
best
part
intent.
of their life.
And people have best intent.
Oh, totally. All right, people's perspective can be changed, right?
Totally.
But what you're
Mine
changing
has.
is their how they have interpret the world previous to that moment. That's a big thing.
Right.
We think we can just give a good speech or run a good lesson, and all of a
Right.
sudden we're going to change. I think it's more difficult than that. And
I
so
agree.
when we talk about working with perspective and in time, really allowing that to give us the power to help people, we got to know that you're going to make instant
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
That's going to be a good way to understand that it's a lot of work. And if you think change is going to happen instantly,
It does not.
you will be defeated.
Correct.
It takes a lot of resilience. It takes a lot of coming back, lifting your head up, going after it again. And so that's why, I start talking about that kind of stuff. I think of the days that I played sports and how much you learned that lesson through team sports and
Right.
the idea of family, right?
Yeah, correct.
Through team sport and going through
Think
those
about
things.
staff meetings when you stand in front of the staff, or I stand in front of the staff, and we're talking about maybe a cultural shift in the building or an academic shift in the building, and we might think it'll be an easy change. It's not. And also bringing everyone's voice along in the conversation so that everyone's part of that work and that the reasoning and that thinking and then that final decision. It's quite the struggle.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's where you got to really be gritty
Yeah.
in any career, because
Right.
a lot of the times, change happens and you don't have a say.
Well, our community partners tell us all the time that the number one skill they want from our students going into the workforce is collaborative problem-solving skills, working with other people to problem solve. And that's what we got to teach our kids, and that's what team sports does.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you gotta be able to bring that into. I mean, perspective. It can change over time. Your perspective, and I think that's an important thing. Is as we go into trying to better ourselves, we got to understand that our work as growing as individuals is to gain perspective. And as we gain perspective on how this world works, how people work, I think your perspective changes over time.
It does.
Easy way to look at that. If you are hungry and there's food in the room, you're going to be looking at that food.
Right.
Okay. But if you're not hungry, that food is just a detail on the wall, right? A detail in the room. And so as you gain, if your job changes, if your situation changes, moving from one state to a different state, you are going to change and your perspective will change as well. And I think that's such a good thing to embrace in somebody's ability to grow
Right.
as an individual.
Well, I think so many things with that thought. I'm thinking of 26 years in education and how the definition of learning has changed in our country, and how what a school means and what a school does, and the role of a teacher. Back when I began teaching in the early 90s, it was basically stand and deliver and give and test and score and put in a grade book and off you go. And now the role of a teacher is so different. So the perspective that an individual needs to bring to their work has shifted or needs to shift and will continue to shift.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we are actually preparing people well to do the job we're asking them to do. And I don't know the answer to
I
that.
think that's an important wondering to have.
Yeah, and
Again,
I don't
asking questions, asking the
Right.
difficult questions and
Correct.
going into the conversation. One message may mean two entirely different things to two people who come with different perspectives.
Right.
So, we might, we do this a lot in the world. One size fits all.
Right.
And it's like, let's make this shift in education and let's go to a more collaborative look because that'll be good for everyone. Well, so one perspective, one message might be entirely different. I mean, the big thing I want to talk about too is misunderstandings often occur because we make assumptions that others see things from the same perspective as we do. Okay.
These have been this last bullet point. I think this is your fifth one. It's probably been my biggest fault, making assumptions, thinking that people around me think how I think, or have a vision that I have, or
Right. Well, I love sports.
Exactly.
Doesn't everybody?
Right.
Right. I love sports.
Well, we all know Denver Broncos are the best football team. So
There's a perspective.
there's a perspective, right? Yeah, it's a
Exactly.
good perspective, by the way.
in
But,
some eyes, yeah.
Right. But we have to, those assumptions are just the death nail to conversations or decision making or outcomes.
Yeah.
Or moving a school, which is my job.
Making effective change in any business, any path, any career that you got to use improvement science.
Right.
Like, what is actually happening here?
Correct.
What is the root cause of what I don't like, or what is the root cause of what's going really well?
And then what factors play into that?
100%. Because if we make assumptions, we might be overlooking something that is huge. As I don't care how many times I have this conversation. I always think back to my dog, Raisu. She's an amazing dog. I trained her as a therapy dog when she was growing up, and she wants everybody to be her friend. And I always catch myself thinking, I'm talking to my dog now. Riley, everyone doesn't like dogs, but she thinks everybody loves dogs. But it's that simple thing is we assume everyone loves dogs. We're wrong.
Right.
If we assume everyone loves sports, we're wrong. If we assume that every student wants to do well in school or has the, inspiration or the motivation
wrong.
to go get that diploma, we're wrong.
Correct.
And so I think assumptions are the biggest misunderstanding that occurs with perspective. And so,
And I'm going to add to that thought. I really like where you're going with your last thought there. I'm going to wonder and I'm going to question the role of education and where we are in 10 years. I really wonder where we'll be. I don't know what the role of the diploma will play. I mean, we're closer to community colleges than we've ever been. We have more dual credit classes than we've ever been or ever have had. We don't require the seat time like we once did. We're asking for more experiential learning. We're looking for more problem-solving collaborative work. Our kids are out in the community more, doing more learning, out of their seats and actually doing the work. And I'm just intrigued by that. Well, if we're not thoughtful there, we're going to have to change our definition around what that one definition of education looks like.
Yeah.
And we're in a shift, and it'll be exciting to see where we go.
Well, I always wonder, like, where and at what age, what grade level do we open the doors and say, figure out what you are passionate about, and let that drive the direction you take.
What do you think it is now? Well, like if you had to pick a grade right now or an age right now, what would you pick?
Oh, I think identifying passion and really looking at what, like, you as an individual, what interests you,
Right.
like what do you care about, what makes you tick. I think that's later in middle school.
You think, yeah,
Like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. What do you love? What and start having those conversations.
Right.
Because we often, it's like I talk about this all the time. Like, I'm done with middle school. I'm done. I'm done with high school. Done. It's like we're never done.
No, it's just one step in a process of learning is all it is.
And I think our job continuously as an individual is figuring out what my skills are and then matching those with my passion.
Right.
And we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about true enterprise. Your ability to match your passions with what you're good at it.
Right.
Grandpa Joe, who loved to death, he always said, find something that you love so much you would do it for free, and be so good at it that they pay you to do it.
Yeah, it's like you and me in education.
Love it.
That's what we're doing.
Would you do it for free?
I would do it for free.
Yeah, and I same thing. And you know what, Mr. Nislanik, you're pretty darn good at it.
Yeah, thank you.
And they pay you to do it, and they should.
Yeah, I love it.
So that that's the whole deal. And I think that fits along with that the being lens. Have you ever heard of the being lens?
Yes.
Who am I? Okay. Where am I? And whose am I? That idea of who are you? What are you about? What makes you tick? What makes your heart scream with joy? What are you passionate about? What drives you? What motivates you? What just grabs your attention and you get engulfed with? Who are you, right? And then where are you? Are you in a place in your life right now where you can explore that? Are you in a place right now where you can do that work? And if you're not, how do you get there?
Right.
What minor adjustments can you make to free up some time to be able to do that, or go in this path, or find ways? It's like a lot of people do want to go to college and do want to go to school, but the biggest roadblock is financially. How do I do that?
Or they don't know how to get there.
Exactly.
They don't know the road.
Where are you right now? And how do you get to where you want to go? And then the other thing is, like, whose are you? It's like it's like my life is not about me. My life is about the impact that I can make on others. And so, who are you trying to serve? Who are you working for?
You and I are very similar in that we both believe that our mission on this earth is to serve others and to make our world a better place. And I think that's one reason why we get along so well, is we believe that kids have the opportunity and that youth have the ability to make our world a better place, and that the people we work with are doing the best job they can. And my role, my being, is helping and being with others and working with others. And I love it. I get all enthusiastic and jazzed around that work. And what really gets me going is I'm sitting in classrooms or walking in the hallways or sitting with kids, and there's laughter and there's engagement and there's inquiry, and I go home and I'm just going, this is good work.
Yeah,
This
well,
is great work.
You know, we I think we're really lucky. I mean, you want to make a difference in the world, become a teacher, become an
totally.
educator, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
there's people that'll disagree with that, and then and
It's
that's
true.
fine.
It's true. It's not about the money.
But oh no, and if
No.
it was, oh, whew.
No, I know.
But that's where it's a hard job. But the reason that people get into it is because there is so much benefit on the other end. But also, we are lucky enough that we get to work with high schoolers, and if you're a middle school teacher, elementary, I mean, you get to have impact on a very
Right.
early stage. I mean, a lot of people are going to live to 100 years old these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the generation we're working with, they're the generation of 100, right?
Correct.
They're gonna live to be 100.
Correct.
And so, but the whole thing is, we're lucky we get to work with young people, but it's never too late.
Right.
It's never too late to step back and say, you know what, I need to wrap my head around how this world works.
Right.
And I need to step outside my own head, see further than my own nose,
Correct.
and
read something new and
gain
explore.
perspective.
Correct.
One of the greatest gifts I think that we have in growth, I think one of the greatest gifts we can give other people is the ability to share perspective.
Right.
And if we really want to make a difference, if we really want to grow, I think that's where we got to fall.
And then we have to, around that sharing your perspective, ask good questions and listen well. Because then you can maybe change a perspective or grow a perspective or be more thoughtful. You're more of a critical thinker, not a critic.
Yeah, and I love how you bring up listening, right? And how important that is. And it's like you really got to understand there's two different types of listening. Right? Like, there's listening, and then there's true listening.
That's true.
Okay, like we as human beings, and I'm going to get the math wrong, but I know we can process like 160 words a minute. Well, that's more words than there are seconds in a minute, right? And so oftentimes, I catch people doing this all the time. Are you thinking about what you're going to say next before you hear my full idea? Because if you are, you're not truly listening to me. We can process so quickly that the pause that you need between conversation or between the last word is not a long one to truly consider what was being said and then react. And it's like when I'm doing this podcast, I gotta listen to what's being said. I got an outline, I got an agenda, but we may jump and go just like we are right now into something we didn't plan on talking about. And I just think, are you truly listening? Or are you thinking about what you're going to say to me next? Because that pause is not a long one.
You're right.
And in a podcast, I can cut it out. We can edit that all day long.
But I do think you're right. If I look at our field of education, great teachers are not the ones that are the most charismatic. They're the ones that listen the best and then let the kids have a voice. The teachers that struggle are the ones that have an answer that they want to receive at the end of a question. If a student doesn't answer, then they move on to the next student that gives them the right answer. And kids pick up on that very quickly. But if the teacher can listen,
couldn't agree with you more.
they're going to pick those kids up with them and pull them along.
And this may sound a little backwards because I've started a podcast and now I'm talking. But in the last 5 years of me being a teacher and being a professional in this field, I've stopped to listen a lot more. And I've gained a huge amount of insight, a huge amount of perspective from just listening. And being an ear to do that. Because sometimes people don't need you to say anything. They just need you to listen.
Right.
And I think that's huge. I think that's an important piece. So I guess if I were to ask you, we've talked quite a bit about perspective. I think you're an amazing principal.
Thank you.
Leader of people, leader of students. I love how student-centered you are. I feel very lucky as a teacher to get to work with a principal that is student-centered, and I think it would be difficult to work for somebody that wasn't. And so I thank you for being student-centered. And if we didn't have students, we wouldn't have a job.
Right.
If they didn't show up every day and need something from us or count on us, we wouldn't have a job. And I think we have the best job in the world. And so I appreciate that. So perspective, if you were to kind of sum up what we've talked about today, how would you do it in a minute or two?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliments and the kind words. I love my job, and I love my job, and I love the work that I do with kids. And I think in summary, as I look back on our conversation, there's so many paths we've gone down. But I think at the end of the day, the end of the conversation, the core, the key, the foundational point is our students have to believe in us. and they have to believe that we're going to deliver something well, and we're going to deliver something that's going to be important to them. And I, being the leader of a building, have an opportunity to provide voice and time and space and ability to bring multiple perspectives to the table. And as student voice is driving conversation, I think that allows every teacher to lean in and to be part of something bigger than themselves, something than a classroom with four walls, something about a community. And then as we build conversation and voice with staff, both certified and classified staff, everyone equal in the conversation, we then can build something like a family, and we can live through the hard times. We can cry together. We can pick ourselves up when we have to pick ourselves up, but we also can celebrate. And we also can then honor our kids and ourselves and our work and our craft and our community and be bigger and better. And so as I kind of think back on our conversation, I go back to my childhood, and I give thanks to my parents for giving me the ability to be something bigger than myself. And that is really important. And I want to leave that in every community I go into and then I exit out of.
And you kind of are jumping to where I go next usually on our podcast is at the end I like to have a moment of gratitude, a moment of recognition. So
I do have other people I could.
Oh, I know, and so we'll see where this goes because I ask these questions. I do this in my classroom quite a bit, and the R in Capture stands for recognition. Who in your life or what in your life is worthy of some recognition? And I think we should ask that on a daily basis. And when somebody's name pops into our head, tell them, reach out somehow, whether it's a text, whether it's, giving them a shout out on your Instagram or your Twitter or whatever it might be, or just being reflective of like, what am I thankful for? So Mr. Nislanik, David Nislanik, who or what in your life is worthy of some recognition?
Okay, well, I'm going to make this really big and then go really small.
Okay, love it.
I think every single student who I've taught or worked with in my life needs to be recognized for giving me something. I received a text last week from a student who I had probably 15 years ago, who's now an educator in a different district across the state. And the text just said, "Thank you for being you and for giving me a voice." And it made me feel really good. And then
I love that.
Isn't that great? I know.
Love
Just
that.
like I will save that one because that goes
right,
a long
right
way.
in the teacher box. Man.
Exactly. I
every
still
teacher
have my
has
teacher
a box or a drawer. Like when they get those
Totally.
little things, it goes because we need to open that drawer
Right.
sometimes and be like, "Why am I doing this?
Right.
It's difficult. It's hard."
Right.
But you just open that drawer.
But every kid I've taught has given me something. They continue to give back, and I think that I've been teaching for 26 years now, and I have kids from the 90s who still reach back to me and reach out, and I think that's important. But if I were to boil that down to one person, I think we all have a mentor, and I think our mentors don't get enough recognition. And my mentor is a person named Rhonda Hahn. I don't know if you know Rhonda. Retired administrator in the Beaverton School District, retired administrator at Highland Park Middle School and Beaverton High School and David Douglas High School, and before that, Sandy and Oregon City. And Rhonda gave me a vision of how I could be better and what I could give to a community, to be a leader, to be a person, to be human, to be kind, to have dignity, not to judge, to be patient and be professional. And Rhonda deserves a shout out for everything she's given me.
And I hope she can listen someday and hear that. I mean, we don't use recognition as much as we should in life. And so I ask myself on a daily basis, who in my life, what in my life is worthy of some recognition right now? As I ask that question, what pops into my head is like, how lucky am I to get to follow a passion? This passion project of like, I've been telling my kids, I want to have a hit podcast someday, or, and it's like, do it. Just do it. Why not? Right.
And here you are.
So just that freedom, right? That ability to chase your dreams and follow your dreams. And the coolest thing that I've experienced is just this crazy idea is that people dreaming it with me. And so I'm thankful that people are patting me on the back and sharing how much they're just enjoying what's going on. And so like a moment of gratitude, right? That what am I thankful for? What deserves recognition? Just that ability to have that freedom in life to go follow your passions.
Right.
And as this is a big passion project of mine, in the hopes that whoever might be listening can take a couple different things away, and tomorrow start doing it. Even today, start living life in a way that in time we can truly capture all these wonderful things we're talking about. David Nieslanik, I thank you for coming on the show. You talked about a mentor. I am so thankful to have you in my life as a mentor. I hope to get to continue to work with you and learn from you. And I think you bring a great perspective to Capture It, the podcast. So thank you for being on here.
Joe, thank you very much. And this is a great experience. And
Absolutely.
your passion runs deep, and you make us better.
I just trying to make an impact, just trying to serve, that service-mindedness piece. All right, as we close shop on this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We're looking for those 5 stars, aren't we?
We are, totally.
So
yes.
this might be
it makes us feel
the
good.
best episode yet. So give David Nieslanik a big, fat 5-star, and we would love for you to rate and review. And again, have you captured it? We'll see you next time.